I guess I expected too much from a developer under Activision's wing. So if you haven't been on YouTube for the last few days, or are more disconnected from the video game industry as most executives, Bungie and Activision finally revealed gameplay of Destiny 2, the sequel to a game that launches the equivalent of a finely rounded and polished turd, and took over $100 and 3 years of waiting to bring it up to the level of quality that a Bethesda game in the pre-alpha stage of development is at. Which is pretty ironic given how many corners Bethesda cuts in QA testing. Much of the original game's problems were mainly due to the troubled development it had, thanks not only in part to the lack of real vision for the game, but also because many of Bungie's top dogs left during development, leaving people who were completely unqualified to fill the void where Destiny's story was supposed to be, and leaving us with a half-baked pseudo-MMO that pleased neither the hardcore PvP gods who strive only for the top spot on the leaderboard, nor the basement dwellers like myself who are always looking for the next dungeon or raid to grind through. It has gotten better over the years, but ultimately, Destiny's future was set the day it launched. All that could be done was progressively improve the already severely flawed formula that we were left with, and hope that the beautiful design of the graphics and the fluidity of the gameplay were enough to carry it all the way through September 8th of this year. Now that we're here, all eyes are on the next game and the developers who are under constant pressure to not repeat the same mistakes again. So, back on topic of the reveal. Did it successfully make us all forget about the train wreck that is Destiny's lifespan? Did it remedy the feeling of being deceived by a company who had already built a ton of customer goodwill with 10 years of one of the best sci-fi shooters of all time? Did it get us all to think to ourselves, you know what, I forgive you. You tested my faith in you for 3 years straight of stupid decisions, but you seem to genuinely want to rebuild your bleeding fanbase. Did this reveal do any of that? Nope. Oh, don't give me that look. You know how much of a negative asshole I can be. Did you really expect me to go all T. Martin on this topic and talk about how excited I am to basketball heads in as a space version of Captain America? Okay, look. It's not like everything about it was bad, so let me go ahead and list off all the good stuff before I talk about the bad stuff. The graphics of Destiny 2, at least relative to the reveal stream since things are bound to change later down the line, are excellent. That's not really much of a surprise though, since the original Destiny was also a graphical masterpiece, but with all the colors and crazy shit that can happen on the screen, it's definitely a lot of eye candy. I also like the look of the new supers and abilities. At the time of writing this script, we know that there are 3 new supers, a Void Shield for Titans, a Solar Sword for Warlocks, and an Arc Spear for Hunters, and some older supers are also returning, but will function a little bit differently. It's also confirmed that we're getting some new class-specific abilities which will really shake up the formula. And this next point I wanted to say for last because this could easily be the most embellished thing brought up during the reveal stream. The idea that the new planets in Destiny 2 are chock full of side quests, secrets, and dungeons, which the guys at Bungie refer to as lost sectors, is a great assertion to make, albeit not really a new thing for RPG games in the first place. But this could easily just be a bigger version of the patrols that we already have now. You know, those little piece of shit nodes that nobody really cares about that might be one of the most egregious examples of repetitive busywork? So you'll forgive me for not exactly accepting spoon-fed lines like rewarding side missions or learning more about the world of Destiny 2. Anyway, I can already feel myself spiraling into rant mode, so let's go ahead and address the elephant in the room. Destiny 2 is not Destiny 2. It's just not. Destiny 2 is Destiny 1.5. I don't normally bring up this point because I don't feel it's all that valid of a critique, but with the frequency with how this keeps happening, it needs to stop. It was a little difficult to admire how cool the new weapons and supers look when there are so many assets and animations that were completely recycled from Destiny. I'm not kidding. If you replace the gun the player was holding while playing through the first mission of Destiny 2 with a Kvostov, which is the first gun that you get in the original Destiny, which you can later upgrade into an exotic, and never saw them use any of the supers, you'd be forgiven for thinking that it was just an advertisement for DLC, not an entirely new game. Hey Bungie, you know what really turned me off of a game like Borderlands the pre-sequel faster than the first 2 games? It wasn't the gameplay, it wasn't the loot, and it wasn't the story. 2K Australia deliberately designed the pre-sequel with the exact same graphics as Borderlands 2. While the game played just fine, I could never get over this feeling that I've already played this before and dropped it after I maxed only a single character. I currently feel the same way whenever I get on Destiny to play even a single strike in its playlist. How do you think it'll play out as soon as I finish the story of Destiny 2? Of course, in the case of the pre-sequel, there were also few differences in the gameplay, so if Bungie wants to avoid putting their players in that same trap, let's hope they gave the gameplay and looting a real shot in the arm. Another problem I have is with Bungie's view on matchmaking and social play. The reasons for not having in-game matchmaking for the original Destiny is that they didn't want to endorse a toxic community. Well, this is just a blatant admittance that not a single fucking person at Bungie even looks at their forums. Look, I get it. toxic communities fucking suck. I've completely abandoned League of Legends before I got anywhere in it because of how hostile people were, and most Call of Duty games are a fucking minefield of salt. But guess what? Toxicity in gaming communities is inevitable, even in the game that you were so desperate to protect. You know how many raids I've played where someone didn't rage quit because we wiped a few times after going on a complete tirade against the people that we played with? You know how many idiotic people post stupid LFG threads on your fucking forums saying that you have to have this and that and the other thing and you must know every mechanic inside and out or some other belittling nonsense? You know how many people join a group for the sole reason to fuck with everyone and ruin with their experience? Oh, well, it seems to me that not having an in-game matchmaking system didn't pose to be a barrier for toxic players after all. It's almost like you were talking complete and utter shit.
They added an in-game LFG, you dumbass Jew, so stop complaining.
I know, and that's awesome! But the fact that they're so hell-bent on sticking to their childishly romantic views on these common standards in these types of games will drive Destiny 2 in the ground.
What the fuck, man? You just said that the LFG was awesome. Why are you still complaining?
Do you think their disconnected ignorance stops at matchmaking? Bungie is notorious for saying something as stupid as saying, we don't separate PvE and PvP because we don't think players can adjust to the performance of weapons in both modes. Yeah, they said that back in the day, and they've never said anything about it during the reveal. If Bungie continues to cup their hands over their ears shouting "Ah la 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 la" for Destiny 2, it'll just be another 3 years of waiting for your best rating gun to be nerfed because it melts in PvP. Lastly, I want to bring up the PC version of Destiny 2 since this not only came with tears of joy, but also tubs of salt. Now, aside from obvious concerns that the PC version might be terribly ported considering Activision's track record for terrible PC ports, there aren't many downsides I can see for Destiny 2 being released on PC. My problem lies with the boneheaded decision to release Destiny 2 exclusively on Battle.net, the same place where you'll find Overwatch, Diablo, and World of Warcraft. Why in the piss-stained hell would you release a game exclusively for the objectively less popular PC format? There is no real logical reason to do this. All of your Call of Duty games are on Steam, both prototypes are on Steam, your plethora of shitty licensed games are on Steam, so how did you come to the conclusion that a sequel to the most monetarily successful release of 2014 should be excluded from the largest PC platform in the world? Speaking of exclusivity, I feel like I have to bring this up, alright? We know for certain that Sony will once again hold exclusivity rights for Destiny 2, so odds are, pieces of later content will be held specifically for PS4 and will be released on the other platforms at a later date. Now, I hate the idea of timed exclusivity. I think it's a deliberately underhanded attempt to punish consumers who had the audacity to support any platform that isn't theirs. However, my ramblings won't convince anyone higher up, so the most I'll say is this. Can we stop with this year-long wait thing? I mean, waiting a month for Call of Duty's DLC is one thing, helped by the fact that they're not very good, but for fuck's sake, a year? Who was the spiteful son of a bitch who approved that? Hell, it's so bad that Xbox gamers still don't have access to some stuff released in previous DLC for the original Destiny, and they can't even touch them until Destiny 2 comes out. What the fuck? If you are absolutely positively sure that you must have these exclusives, then at the very least conform to the industry standard and make it a month. There is no possibility that Destiny's egregious exclusives weren't an attempt to spite all Xbox players, and that is just plain unacceptable to me. Anyway, aside from the console version of Destiny 2 potentially running at 30 FPS and the aforementioned recycled assets, I'm still hopeful that Destiny 2 can be everything, or at least almost everything, that the first game tried to be. Bungie's Space Magic RPG is probably the only game under Activision's disgusting belt that still piques my interest, but that interest can quickly dissipate if Bungie drops the ball for another 3 years. The goal is to get it right the first time, then expand the content later, not deliver a half-baked mess on day one and drag your audience through the mud while trying to get your bearings. Consumer goodwill is not a well of infinite resources. We took it as blissful ignorance last time, but fuck it up again, and you'll be no different from Ubisoft or Konami to us. The ball's in your court, Bungie. Show us what you're really made of.